The Strait of Hormuz is one of the most dangerous pressure points on Earth, a narrow corridor, a global fault line. Between Iran and Oman, this passage carries a vast share of the world's energy, with much of its crude oil moving toward Asia. Warships patrol nearby. Constantly, radar stations track the water. Satellites watch from above. Fast attack craft, coastal missiles, drones, and naval mines turn confined sea into a field of calculation. Every route feels exposed, every signal matters, and a single confrontation could shake shipping lanes, energy markets, and political stability far beyond the Gulf. And yet Hormuz is more than tension. Beyond the military shadow lie red beaches, where red sand blends with the waves like ink spilled on paper. The Mineral Valley paints a vibrant spectrum of colors. The cold salt caves glisten. The ancient fortress overlooks the sea. Come with us now and see Hormuz beyond the headlines, where danger, history, and hidden beauty meet at the edge of the sea. The Strait of Hormuz lies between Iran and Oman, linking the Persian Gulf with the Gulf of Oman and the wider Arabian Sea. This region controls up to 21% of total global oil consumption. In particular, over 70% of the crude oil flowing through the strait is destined for Asian economies, making it a core national security issue for China, Japan, and India. Military presence never feels accidental. Warships from several nations operate in nearby waters. Escort missions, surveillance flights, and maritime drills unfold against a horizon that appears calm but rarely relaxed. The geography leaves little room for maneuver. Every vessel follows a defined path. Every movement is noticed. A narrow corridor of water, but being watched carefully by the superpowers. In this confined space, distance feels shorter and decisions feel heavier. Its power comes from concentration. A vast share of global seaborne oil trade passes through this narrow gate each day, along with a significant portion of the world's liquefied natural gas shipments. Energy markets on distant continents depend on ships crossing these waters without interruption. One delay here can ripple across refineries, shipping routes, and financial centers far away. That is the paradox of this place. The global economy speaks in enormous numbers and vast networks, yet so much of its energy still passes through a passage only a few dozen kilometers wide. Here, control does not always require conquest. Sometimes it requires nothing more than the power to interrupt. A quiet island, a hard edge of strategy. Keshem lies along Iran's southern coast, stretched beside the Strait of Hormuz like a long stone gate. To one side, the Persian Gulf narrows toward the open sea. To the other, Iran's mainland gathers ports, radar, and military infrastructure. The island appears dry, exposed, almost austere. Yet the calm is deceptive. These waters carry a large share of the world's traded energy, and Keshem stands close enough to watch that movement at intimate range. In 2024, about 20 million barrels of oil moved through Hormuz each day, along with roughly 1/5 of global liquefied natural gas trade. From ground like this, geography becomes leverage. Shipping lanes compress. Surveillance shortens distance. A vessel passing through the strait does not merely cross water, it enters a field of calculation. That is why militarization feels built into the landscape. Iranian naval and missile forces operate across this corridor, and Keshem sits near that architecture of pressure. The logic is ancient enough. Control the threshold, and you influence everything beyond it. On modern maps, the method has changed very little. Only the sensors improved. And here is the island, which has the same name as the tension strait. Hormuz Island sits beside the inner curve of the strait that links the Persian Gulf to the wider Arabian Sea. Radar stations scan the channel. Patrol boats move through the traffic lanes. Military outposts overlook one of the most monitored passages on Earth. Across the wider strait, Iran operates dozens of fast attack craft designed for swarm tactics, supported by coastal missile batteries and naval bases spread along the shoreline. Anti-ship missiles, such as the Noor and Qadr, reach well over 100 kilometers, placing most of the strait within range. Unmanned aerial vehicles and surveillance drones extend that visibility even farther. In some sections, the shipping lanes themselves narrow to only a few kilometers in each direction. Large tankers must follow these predictable routes. Military planners understand the implication immediately. A small island near a narrow gate becomes more than land. It becomes position. Not only Iran, Oman also joins the military and political chessboard at the Strait of Hormuz. A wall of mountains meets the sea. The water narrows into calculation. The Musandam Peninsula forms the northern tip of Oman, thrusting into the Strait of Hormuz like a stone gate. From above, the coastline fractures into long, fjord-like inlets that hide harbors and observation points. Across the narrow channel lies Iran. Between them passes one of the most sensitive maritime corridors on Earth. The inbound and outbound shipping lanes each measure only a few kilometers across, separated by a small buffer of open water. Every tanker entering or leaving the Persian Gulf must follow these tight routes. Predictable routes invite surveillance. Surveillance invites strategy. Here, Oman acts as the eye coordinating traffic with a radar station located atop Jebel Harim mountain over 2,000 meters high. Their mission is to operate the traffic separation scheme, a strict maritime traffic rule designed to prevent collisions in tight spaces. Military presence also reflects that reality. Iranian naval forces operate hundreds of patrol craft, missile boats, and coastal defense systems along the northern shoreline of the strait. Anti-ship missiles, with ranges exceeding 100 kilometers, place much of the corridor within reach. Across the water, Western and regional navies maintain patrol rotations to escort commercial vessels and monitor the passage. That is why Musandam matters. The mountains do not simply overlook the sea, they overlook leverage. In a corridor this narrow, geography becomes strategy. The radars of both sides are constantly locked onto each other 24/7. When passing through this narrow corridor, the sailors felt as if gun barrels were pointed directly at them from both sides. Between Larak Island and the Musandam Peninsula, the Strait of Hormuz contracts to about 33 kilometers at its narrowest point. Yet the usable shipping lanes are far smaller, only about 3 kilometers wide in each direction, divided by a narrow buffer. That geometry forces some of the world's most valuable cargo into disciplined, predictable lines. In some recent years, nearly 1/3 of the world's seaborne oil trade has crossed this single choke point. Thousands of commercial vessels navigate the corridor annually, carrying energy that fuels industries, cities, and power grids across multiple continents. Fast attack craft, coastal missile batteries, drones, and patrol aircraft all gain value when space is this compressed. In a wider sea, surveillance observes. Here, it can pressure. This is not just a passage, it is a trigger point. There were times when American warships and Iranian patrol boats sailed so close that soldiers on both sides could clearly see each other's faces through binoculars. They can even hear each other's challenging radio broadcasts amidst the sound of the waves. Red stone above quiet water, walls facing a restless strait. The Portuguese fort of Hormuz rises from the red soil of the island like a fragment of another century. Its thick walls overlook the narrow sea, where the Persian Gulf meets the open waters of the Arabian Sea. Wind moves through broken corridors. The air carries salt and desert dust. From the ramparts, the horizon remains wide and deceptively calm. The fortress was built in the early 16th century after Portuguese forces seized control of Hormuz, seeking to command the maritime trade routes between India, Persia, and Arabia. Stone by stone, they shaped a citadel designed to guard one of the most valuable passages in the known world. Ships once approached these waters carrying spices, silk, pearls, and silver from distant ports across the Indian Ocean. Up close, the structure feels weathered but patient. Red earth mixes with coral stone in its walls. Empty arches frame the sea beyond. The sound of waves reaches the courtyard long after the soldiers have gone. Empires changed, trade routes shifted, yet the fort still watches the same strait, a quiet witness beside a passage that has rarely lost its importance. White wind towers above a quiet harbor, a town shaped by wind and water. Laughed Old City stands along the northern coast of Kishim Island, facing the tidal channels of the Persian Gulf. Narrow alleys wind between houses built of coral stone, clay, and sun-baked earth. Above them rise dozens of tall windcatchers, slender towers designed to pull cool air down into shaded rooms. When the wind arrives from the sea, the towers whisper softly across the rooftops. For centuries, this small port watched the busy waters of the Strait of Hormuz. Sailors from Arabia, Persia, and the Indian Ocean, once anchored here, carrying goods along trade routes that linked distant coasts. Laughs Harbour and nearby mangrove forests offered shelter for wooden dhow vessels navigating the tidal flats of the Gulf. Today, the town feels slower. Sunlight warms the stone courtyards. Fishing boats drift near the shore. Yet the wind towers still rise above the village skyline. Quiet reminders of a community that learned long ago how to live with heat, sea, and time. You may not expect this, but on a militarized island like Keshem, there is a traditional craft that has been listed in UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage. That's the traditional skills of building and sailing Iranian lenge boats in the Persian Gulf, which has been recognized in 2011. Along the shores of Keshem Island, traditional shipyards stretch beside the calm waters of the Persian Gulf. Here the skeletons of wooden vessels rise slowly from the sand. Thick beams curve upward like ribs. Craftsmen move carefully across the frames, shaping planks with saw, hammer, and patient hands. The rhythm of tools carries across the yard. Wood answers with a hollow, steady sound. These vessels belong to a long maritime tradition of the Gulf. For generations, shipbuilders on Keshem have constructed large wooden dhows that once carried cargo and travelers between Persia, Arabia, India, and the coast of East Africa. Even today, some of these ships measure more than 30 meters in length, built almost entirely by hand using techniques passed from master to apprentice. Up close, the craft reveals quiet precision. Curved planks meet without visible gaps. Ropes tighten the structure before metal fastenings are set into place. When a finished vessel finally touches water, the harbor grows briefly silent. Another ship has joined the old routes of the Persian Gulf. If you're still surprised, we will reveal you another UNESCO heritage site at Keshem Island, Keshem Geopark. Keshem Geopark stretches across the great island that guards the Strait of Hormuz. Here, the land appears carved rather than built. Narrow canyons twist through pale rock. Wind moves through them with a low, hollow voice. Hard sunlight burns across exposed ridges before falling suddenly into shadow. The island reads like an open geological manuscript, layer after layer. Nothing here feels young, very old ground. This landscape forms the Middle East's first UNESCO Global Geopark. Across the island, erosion reveals salt domes, folded sedimentary hills, and long valleys shaped by water that vanished ages ago. In places, the rock crumbles like dry clay beneath the hand. In others, it shines with crystals of salt. Yet life finds space here. Mangrove forests breathe along the tidal shores. Birds cross the quiet sky above the valleys. Wind returns again and again through the stone corridors. The island listens patiently, Earth writing its slow story. Let's temporarily forget about the military equipment and political tensions on Hormuz Island. We will show you where stone becomes color and geology becomes art. This is Rainbow Valley on Hormuz Island, a small volcanic island near the entrance of the Persian Gulf. The ground here reveals an astonishing palette of minerals, where layers of iron oxide, sulfur compounds, and salt deposits stain the hills in bands of vivid color. The valley feels almost unreal. Slopes of crimson earth descend beside ridges of gold and orange. Dark volcanic rock appears between them like brushstrokes on an enormous canvas shaped by heat, pressure, and time. No human hand can ever arrange these colors. The planet did. Wind moves softly across the valley floor, carrying grains of brightly tinted sand along narrow paths between the hills. With every storm and rainfall, the landscape reshapes itself, mixing minerals into new patterns across the desert ground. Here, the island of Hormuz reveals a hidden laboratory of minerals. The forces beneath the crust have quietly painted one of the most extraordinary landscapes in the Persian Gulf. What kind of island hides rivers of salt beneath its surface? What kind of mountain slowly dissolves into caves of crystal and shadow? Deep within Hormuz Island lies one of the Persian Gulf's most unusual landscapes. The Hormuz Salt Cave winds through a vast salt dome pushed upward from deep beneath the Earth's crust, where pressure slowly lifted ancient mineral layers toward the surface. Salt above, salt below, silence between. Inside the cave, the air cools quickly. Walls of white and amber salt shimmer under faint light, reflecting subtle tones of gold, pink, and gray. The surface feels smooth in some places, jagged in others, where mineral crystals have grown over centuries. Small streams of mineral water sometimes trickle through the cave floor, dissolving salt and carving narrow channels deeper into the rock. Drop by drop, the cavern continues to reshape itself in slow geological time. From the outside, Hormuz appears dry and rugged, yet beneath its colorful hills flows a hidden world of crystals and underground chambers. Stone dissolving, time working patiently, and the earth slowly transforms solid rock into a luminous labyrinth of salt and shadow. A narrow sea channel winds between towering desert mountains. Calm water reflects cliffs of stone and shadow. These are the Arabian fjords of the Musandam Peninsula, where rugged mountains plunge steeply into the blue waters of the Strait of Hormuz. Over thousands of years, tectonic forces lifted these limestone ranges, while the sea slowly carved deep inlets between them. From the water, the cliffs appear immense. Layers of pale rock rise in quiet steps above narrow bays and hidden coves. The sea moves gently through the channels, its color shifting from deep blue to bright turquoise near the shore. Traditional wooden boats glide across the surface. Fishermen travel between small coastal villages tucked into sheltered inlets along the rugged shoreline. Wind moves along the cliffs. Seabirds circle the high ridges. Despite their dramatic scale, the Arabian fjords remain peaceful places where mountains, sea, and human life share the same narrow spaces. Here in Musandam, the desert does not end at the shore. It simply falls into the sea, creating one of the most striking coastal landscapes of the Arabian Peninsula. A pale mountain rises above the Arabian fjords. Wind moves quietly across its high ridges of stone. Jebel Harim stands as the highest peak of the Musandam Peninsula in northern Oman. The mountain's slopes reveal layers of ancient limestone formed beneath a prehistoric ocean, long before the Arabian Peninsula rose from the sea. Fossils of coral and marine shells still appear in the rock, reminders that these desert heights were once underwater. Stone terraces descend through narrow valleys. The landscape feels harsh, yet life persists in surprising ways. Arabian tar climb the steep cliffs with quiet precision. These agile mountain goats move easily across ledges where few predators can follow. Nearby, desert foxes travel through rocky ravines at dusk, searching for insects and small prey. Above the slopes, birds circle the rising air. Egyptian vultures glide along the mountain thermals, while kestrels hover briefly before diving toward the ground and give an instant kill to a rabbit. Stone, wind, hidden life. Despite the dryness, scattered shrubs and hardy grasses grow in pockets of soil between rocks. These plants sustain the animals that survive here, forming a fragile ecosystem shaped by heat, wind, and altitude. On the silent slopes of Jebel Harim, the desert mountain reveals that even the harshest landscapes can quietly support life. And this is the final destination of the journey through the Strait of Hormuz, Kumzar, a remote village at the northern tip of Oman's Musandam Peninsula. Isolated by rugged cliffs and deep fjords, the village remains accessible mostly by boat. Life moves gently in Kumzar. Fishing boats leave the harbor at dawn, returning with the day's catch from the waters of the Strait of Hormuz. Nets dry along the shore. Children walk narrow paths between stone houses that face the sea. The people here speak Kumzari, a rare language found almost nowhere else in the world. It blends elements of Persian, Arabic, and older regional dialects, reflecting centuries of maritime trade that once passed through these waters. small village, ancient culture, a language that survived the mountains. The paradox feels quiet but powerful. While modern cities grow across the Gulf, Hormuz remains rooted in rhythms shaped by fishing, weather, and tradition. Wooden boats still rest on the sand. Voices travel across the harbor in a language carried through generations. In Hormuz, culture endures not through isolation alone, but through a deep connection between sea, mountain, and community. The journey through the Strait of Hormuz comes to a close, and the tension is still there, like a line stretched across the surface of the sea. No one can say with certainty when the conflicts will end. But you will remember the red sand touching the waves. You will remember the cliffs and mineral valleys like a painting that has not yet been given a name. You will remember the cold, shimmering salt caves and the ancient fortresses looking out over the sea like guardians of time. Hormuz, therefore, is not only a military hotspot, it also carries a strange kind of allure. Even along one of the most tense maritime routes on Earth, nature still calmly creates its gentlest moments. If this journey has helped you see the world with greater clarity, continue traveling with us by subscribing to the channel. Thank you for watching, and we will see you again on the next journeys ahead.